I'm Maya, 29 years old, and for the past 3 years, I've poured my heart and soul into Sterling and Company, a prominent marketing firm nestled in the vibrant heart of Atlanta. My role as a senior marketing associate felt like a stepping stone, a place where my creativity and strategic thinking could truly flourish. I envisioned a future where my ideas shaped campaigns that resonated deeply. Growing up in a tight-knit community just outside the city, I was raised with the belief that hard work and integrity would always open doors. My parents, both educators, instilled in me a strong sense of purpose and the importance of advocating for what is right. They taught me to never dim my light for anyone. From my very first day, I was determined to prove my worth, not just to my colleagues, but to myself. I meticulously crafted presentations, stayed late to refine strategies, and consistently exceeded my targets. My client feedback was overwhelmingly positive, often highlighting my innovative approaches and dedication. However, there was a subtle, yet persistent, undercurrent of dismissiveness from my direct superior, Mr. Harrison. He was a man in his late 50s, impeccably dressed, with a demeanor that exuded old-school Southern charm, but his eyes often held a distant, almost condescending gaze when he looked at me. It was a look I knew all too well. He would often praise my work in general terms, but rarely acknowledge the specific insights or unique contributions I brought to a project. Instead, he would attribute successes to the team's collective effort or the firm's established processes, effectively erasing my individual impact. It was frustrating, a constant battle for recognition. I noticed he treated other associates, particularly the younger white men, with a different kind of engagement. He'd spend extra time discussing their ideas, offering direct mentorship, and even sharing anecdotes about his own career trajectory. For me, it was always brief, transactional interactions. Despite this, I refused to let his subtle slights deter me. I believed in my abilities and knew that my work spoke for itself. My ambition wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about creating meaningful change and proving that talent knows no color or background. I started taking on additional responsibilities, volunteering for complex projects that others shied away from. I immersed myself in market research, identifying untapped opportunities and presenting data-driven proposals. I wanted to make myself indispensable, undeniable. My colleagues, especially Sarah, a kind and insightful HR manager, often noticed my dedication. Sarah was a beacon of support, always offering encouragement and a listening ear when I felt overlooked. She saw my potential, even when Mr. Harrison seemed blind to it. One afternoon, I overheard Mr. Harrison casually remarking to a senior partner, "Maya is a good worker, very diligent, but she lacks that certain executive presence we look for in leadership." The word stung, a thinly veiled dismissal of my capabilities based on something intangible, something he couldn't quite articulate, but I understood perfectly. It wasn't about my skills, it was about his perception, clouded by biases he likely didn't even acknowledge. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that his opinion didn't define my worth. It only fueled my resolve to prove him wrong, not just for myself, but for every person who had ever been underestimated. I began to meticulously document my achievements, creating a detailed portfolio of my contributions, client testimonials, and the tangible results I delivered. I wanted concrete evidence that could not be dismissed or attributed to anyone else. This was my quiet rebellion. The thought of advancing within the company, particularly to a manager position, became my primary focus. I knew I had the leadership qualities, the strategic vision, and the dedication to excel in such a role. I just needed the opportunity to demonstrate it. I started to observe the current managers, analyzing their strengths and weaknesses, identifying areas where I could bring fresh perspectives and innovative solutions. I was preparing myself, mentally and professionally, for the moment a management position opened up. I was ready to seize it. Little did I know, the opportunity would arise in a way I never anticipated, shrouded in deception and leading me down a path of unexpected discovery. My journey at Sterling and Company was about to take a dramatic turn, forcing me to confront not just professional challenges, but deeply ingrained prejudices. The internal job posting for the marketing manager position appeared on the company intranet a few weeks later, a beacon of hope in what often felt like a stagnant career path. It was the role I had been preparing for, the next logical step in my professional growth. My heart pounded with a mix of excitement and trepidation. I immediately updated my resume, carefully highlighting my 3 years of consistent high performance, my leadership on key projects, and the significant revenue increases I had directly contributed to. I tailored my cover letter to reflect my vision for the marketing department, emphasizing innovation and client-centric strategies. My interview with the hiring committee, which included Mr. Harrison, felt promising. I articulated my ideas with clarity and confidence, drawing on my extensive experience and deep understanding of the firm's clients. I felt I had presented a compelling case for my candidacy, leaving no room for doubt about my qualifications. Mr. Harrison, however, maintained his usual detached demeanor throughout the interview, offering little in the way of encouraging feedback or engaging questions. His gaze was often fixed on the notes in front of him, rarely meeting my eyes. It was as if he was merely going through the motions. Despite his lukewarm reception, I remained optimistic. I had outperformed my peers, my qualifications were impeccable, and I believed in the meritocratic principles the company ostensibly upheld. I truly thought my hard work was about to pay off, that my talent would finally be recognized. Days turned into a week, then 2. The silence was deafening. I saw other candidates, less experienced than me, being called back for second interviews. A knot of anxiety began to form in my stomach, growing tighter with each passing day. I tried to focus on my current projects, but the uncertainty was a constant distraction. Finally, I received an email requesting a meeting with Mr. Harrison. My pulse quickened. This had to be it. I walked into his office, a nervous flutter in my chest, ready to hear the good news, ready to embrace the next chapter of my career. He sat behind his large mahogany desk, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Maya," he began, his voice smooth and measured. "Thank you for coming. We've made a decision regarding the marketing manager position." My breath hitched, waiting for the words I longed to hear. "While your application was certainly strong, and we appreciate your dedication," he continued, "we've decided to go with another candidate, someone who we feel is a better fit for the long-term strategic vision of the department." The words hit me like a physical blow, deflating all my hopes in an instant. My mind reeled. A better fit? I had given this company everything. I had consistently gone above and beyond. "May I ask why?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper, trying to keep the tremor out of it. I needed an explanation, a concrete reason beyond vague corporate jargon. He leaned back in his chair, a dismissive wave of his hand. "It's nothing specific, Maya. Just a holistic assessment. Sometimes it's about intangible qualities, you know. Leadership presence, gravitas. We believe the chosen candidate possesses those qualities in spades. The same old excuses, recycled and repackaged. The intangible qualities always seemed to be the barrier, the invisible wall that kept me from advancing. It was a coded language for something else, something unspoken but deeply felt. I knew, in that moment, that this decision wasn't about my qualifications. I left his office, the weight of disappointment pressing down on me. I felt a profound sense of injustice, a deep-seated frustration that my efforts and talent were being systematically overlooked. It wasn't just a rejection. It felt like a confirmation of a bias I had long suspected. But even in my disappointment, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. I refused to accept this as the final answer. This setback would not define me. It would only strengthen my resolve to break through the invisible barriers placed in my path. I knew I deserved that position, and I was determined to understand the real reasons behind their decision. The glass ceiling might have seemed impenetrable, but I was ready to find the cracks and shatter it. My journey was far from over. Just 2 weeks after the manager position was filled by a less experienced external candidate, a sudden, ominous email landed in everyone's inbox. Urgent all-hands meeting. Significant company announcement. A wave of unease rippled through the office. Whispers of layoffs and restructuring filled the air. My heart sank. I had a terrible feeling about this. The atmosphere in the main conference room was thick with tension as Mr. Harrison, flanked by other senior executives, stood at the podium. His face was grim, a stark contrast to his usual composed demeanor. "Team," he began, his voice somber, I regret to inform you that due to unforeseen economic challenges and necessary strategic realignments, Sterling and Company must implement significant budget cuts across several departments. This was an incredibly difficult decision, made with the long-term health of the company in mind. He went on to explain that these cuts would unfortunately include staff reductions. My mind raced, trying to process the implications. Who would be affected? Would my department be hit hard? A cold dread settled in my stomach as he started listing the impacted teams. Then, he mentioned the marketing department. My breath hitched. He announced that several roles, including senior marketing associates, would be eliminated. My eyes darted around the room, meeting the worried glances of my colleagues. This couldn't be happening. Maya, Mr. Harrison said, his gaze meeting mine across the room. I'm afraid your position is among those being eliminated due to these budget cuts. We deeply appreciate your contributions during your time here. His words were a blur. The room seemed to spin around me. Dismissed. Again. But this time, it was a complete termination, not just a missed promotion. The irony was bitter. I was deemed not good enough for a promotion, and now I was deemed expendable due to budget cuts. It felt like a deliberate, targeted blow. I managed to maintain my composure, though my hands trembled slightly. I nodded, feigning understanding, but inside a storm was brewing. How could a company that had just hired an external manager claim budget cuts were necessary? The numbers didn't add up. Later that day, in a private meeting with HR, Sarah expressed her genuine regret. Maya, I'm so sorry. This came down from the top, and it was non-negotiable. Your performance reviews have always been stellar. Her words offered little comfort, but her sincerity was a small bomb. I asked for details, wanting to understand the specifics of the budget cuts. Sarah explained that the directive was broad, affecting multiple departments, but she couldn't provide granular financial data. It all felt vague, designed to obscure rather than clarify. As I packed my personal belongings, a mix of anger and disbelief washed over me. 3 years of dedication, countless hours, and unwavering loyalty, all dismissed with a cold, impersonal announcement. It was a stark reminder of the precariousness of my position. But beneath the hurt, a new emotion began to simmer, suspicion. The timing of my dismissal, so soon after the promotion I was denied, felt too convenient. The budget cuts, explanation felt like a flimsy excuse, a smokescreen for something else. I remembered Mr. Harrison's earlier comments about executive presence and his consistent overlooking of my achievements. This wasn't just about budget. It was about something deeper, something rooted in prejudice. I felt it in my gut. I resolved then and there that I would not let this injustice stand. I would not be another statistic, another talented individual dismissed without a fight. My dismissal, cloaked in the guise of financial necessity, felt personal. I walked out of Sterling and Company that day, not with my head bowed in defeat, but with a quiet determination. I would uncover the truth behind these budget cuts and the true reasons for my dismissal. My journey of resilience was about to begin in earnest. The days following my dismissal were a whirlwind of emotions, anger, confusion, and a burning desire for answers. I spent hours replaying conversations, analyzing every interaction with Mr. Harrison, searching for clues that might reveal the real reason behind my sudden termination. The budget cuts, explanation felt increasingly hollow. I started by reviewing my past performance reviews and project documentation. Every single one was glowing, filled with positive feedback and metrics demonstrating my significant contributions to the firm's success. There was no legitimate performance-based reason for my dismissal. My record was impeccable. My suspicion grew stronger when I learned that the new manager, a man named Mark, had no prior experience in the specific niche of marketing that was my specialty. He was a generalist, and his hiring seemed contradictory to any genuine strategic realignment focused on efficiency. It just didn't make sense. I reached out to Sarah, the HR manager, under the guise of inquiring about my severance package. During our conversation, I subtly probed for more information about the budget cuts, asking about the specific financial reports that led to the decision. She was hesitant, citing confidentiality, but her discomfort was palpable. Maya, she confided, her voice lowered, I can't share specifics, but I can tell you that the decision to eliminate your role was unusual. It didn't align with the usual protocols for staff reductions based on performance or departmental need. Her words were a validation of my growing suspicions. Sarah, who had always been a quiet ally, hinted that the decision had come directly from Mr. Harrison, bypassing some of the standard review processes. This confirmed my gut feeling that my dismissal was personally motivated, not a broad corporate directive. I began to dig deeper, using my network of former colleagues and industry contacts. I asked subtle questions about the company's financial health, recent client acquisitions, and any internal changes that might shed light on the situation. I was looking for any inconsistency, any anomaly. I discovered that Sterling and Company had recently landed a massive new client, a national retail chain, which contradicted the narrative of unforeseen economic challenges. This major contract should have led to expansion, not contraction, especially in the marketing department. The pieces weren't fitting together. My investigation led me to an old friend who worked in the firm's IT department. I asked him, hypothetically, about company data retention policies and if there were any unusual recent activities in the internal systems. He couldn't provide specific details, but he did mention some odd server activity related to archived employee files. This was a critical lead. Why would someone be accessing old employee files, especially archived ones, around the time of the budget cuts announcement? It suggested a deliberate effort to review past records, perhaps looking for something specific. I started thinking about Mr. Harrison's behavior. His subtle microaggressions, his dismissive comments about my executive presence, his quickness to attribute my successes to others. It wasn't just about me. It was a pattern of behavior that needed to be exposed. The more I uncovered, the more convinced I became that Mr. Harrison had orchestrated my dismissal under false pretenses. The budget cuts were a convenient cover, a way to remove me without raising immediate red flags. But I was determined to pull back the curtain. I spent late nights researching corporate ethics, wrongful termination laws, and the process of whistleblowing. I wanted to be fully informed, to understand every step I needed to take to expose the truth and seek justice. This wasn't just about getting my job back, it was about integrity. I knew I was on the brink of uncovering something significant, something that Mr. Harrison desperately wanted to keep hidden. The whispers of deception were growing louder, and I was ready to listen, ready to act. My journey had shifted from seeking answers to seeking justice. My IT friend's vague mention of odd server activity around archived employee files gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was connected to Mr. Harrison and my dismissal. I needed more concrete information, a tangible piece of evidence that could expose the truth. I remembered a time months ago when Mr. Harrison had asked me to help him organize some old digital files on his personal company drive. He was surprisingly disorganized, and I had noticed a folder labeled Confidential HR Reviews that seemed out of place among his client presentations. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it, assuming it was a routine HR audit. But now, with my suspicions heightened, that folder flashed in my mind like a neon sign. What if it contained something more, something he didn't want anyone to see? I knew gaining access to his personal company drive would be nearly impossible without raising alarms. However, I recalled that during my time at Sterling and Company, I had occasionally been given temporary access to certain shared drives for collaborative projects. I wondered if any of those permissions might still be active, even after my termination. It was a long shot, but I decided to try. I logged into my old company email from a secure, untraceable connection, hoping against hope that my access hadn't been fully revoked for shared resources. To my surprise, a few limited permissions were still active, likely an oversight during the hasty dismissal process. One of these active permissions was to a shared project folder that Mr. Harrison had created months ago for a major client pitch. To my astonishment, within that folder, I found a subfolder titled Performance Metrics, Internal Use Only. My heart pounded as I clicked on it. Inside, there wasn't just performance data. There were scanned copies of old HR review documents, internal memos, and what appeared to be a personal, unofficial ledger. This ledger meticulously tracked employee performance, but it also included handwritten notes next to certain names. As I scrolled through, my blood ran cold. Next to the names of several minority employees, including my own, were coded remarks like lacks cultural fit, not a team player, or difficult to integrate. Next to white employees, even those with similar performance, the notes were always positive or neutral. The hidden ledger, as I instantly dubbed it, was a chilling revelation. It wasn't about performance. It was about race, about a deliberate pattern of discriminatory evaluations and biases that Mr. Harrison had been maintaining for years. My dismissal wasn't about budget cuts. It was about his systemic prejudice. And then I found my name. Next to my consistently high performance scores, Mr. Harrison had scrawled, "Too assertive. Challenges authority. Not suitable for leadership role." It was a direct contradiction to the executive presence he claimed I lacked. He saw my confidence as a threat. The ledger also contained details of past employees who had been dismissed or denied promotions under similar vague pretexts. It was a clear pattern, a secret history of discrimination hidden in plain sight, disguised by corporate jargon and false narratives. I immediately began to download and secure every document, every scan, every entry from that hidden ledger. I knew this was the evidence I needed, the undeniable proof of Mr. Harrison's discriminatory practices. This was his secret, and I was about to expose it. The anger that had been simmering within me now solidified into a cold, determined resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who had been unfairly judged and dismissed by Mr. Harrison. I had a responsibility to bring this to light. I closed the connection, my hand still shaking, but my mind clear. I had found the smoking gun. The budget cuts were a lie, a convenient cover for a deep-seated bias. My fight for justice was about to move from investigation to confrontation. With the hidden ledger securely downloaded, my next step was clear. I needed to strategically unveil Mr. Harrison's secret. This wasn't a task to be rushed. It required careful planning, precision, and the right allies. I knew one person who could help me navigate these treacherous waters: Sarah, the HR manager. I arranged a discreet meeting with Sarah outside the office, choosing a quiet coffee shop where we wouldn't be overheard. Her face registered surprise when I told her I had something critical to discuss, something that went far beyond my severance package. I laid out the evidence, showing her the scanned HR reviews with Mr. Harrison's discriminatory notes and the detailed ledger. As she read through the documents, her eyes widened, and her expression shifted from surprise to shock, then to a deep sense of betrayal and anger. "Maya," she whispered, her voice barely audible, This is appalling. I had my suspicions about his methods, but I never imagined anything this blatant. This is systemic discrimination." Her reaction confirmed the gravity of what I had found. Sarah, being in HR, understood the full implications of the ledger. She knew it wasn't just unethical. It was illegal and could severely damage Sterling & Company's reputation and expose them to significant legal action. She was as invested in exposing the truth as I was. Together, we began to formulate a plan. Sarah advised me on the internal protocols for reporting such serious misconduct, emphasizing the need for an airtight case. We needed to present the evidence to the highest authority within the company, bypassing Mr. Harrison's immediate superiors who might be too close to him. We identified the CEO and the head of legal as our primary targets. Our goal was not just to see Mr. Harrison removed, but to ensure that his actions were thoroughly investigated and that the company took responsibility for allowing such practices to fester. Sarah also suggested we reach out to some of the other employees whose names appeared in the ledger, particularly those who had been dismissed under similar vague circumstances. Their testimonies, combined with the ledger, would create an undeniable pattern of discrimination. Contacting them required sensitivity and discretion. I explained the situation carefully, offering the evidence I had found. To my relief, several former colleagues were eager to come forward, their own experiences validating the patterns I had uncovered. Their collective stories added immense weight to our case. We compiled a comprehensive dossier, meticulously organizing the hidden ledger, the supporting HR documents, and the personal testimonies. Each piece of evidence was cross-referenced, creating an irrefutable narrative of Mr. Harrison's discriminatory practices. This was no longer just about my job. It was about justice for everyone he had wronged. It was about holding powerful individuals accountable for their biases and ensuring that no one else would suffer the same fate. My personal fight had become a collective one. The process was emotionally draining, but the thought of exposing the truth, of preventing future harm, kept me going. I felt a profound sense of purpose, knowing that I was fighting for something bigger than myself. The stage was set for the unveiling. The day of the reckoning arrived. Sarah and I, accompanied by a few of the former employees who had agreed to testify, walked into the executive suite of Sterling and Company. The atmosphere was tense, but I felt a quiet strength knowing we were armed with irrefutable truth. We had secured a meeting with the CEO, Ms. Evelyn Reed, and the head of legal, Mr. David Chen. They were initially composed, their expressions professional, but that quickly changed as we began to present our case. Sarah started by outlining the procedural irregularities surrounding my dismissal. Then, I took over, presenting the hidden ledger. I explained how I had discovered it, the discriminatory notes next to employee names, and the chilling pattern of dismissals and denied promotions based on race, not performance. I spoke calmly, letting the evidence speak for itself. As I projected images of the ledger entries onto the screen, Ms. Reed's face grew increasingly pale, and Mr. Chen's jaw tightened. They exchanged worried glances, clearly grasping the severity of the allegations and the potential legal ramifications for the company. The former employees then shared their stories, each one echoing the patterns of subtle bias and unfair treatment documented in Mr. Harrison's ledger. Their testimonies were powerful, adding a human dimension to the cold, hard evidence we had presented. Ms. Reed, visibly shaken, interrupted. This is deeply disturbing. We had no idea this was happening under our roof." Her voice was filled with a mix of shock and genuine concern. Mr. Chin immediately began taking extensive notes, his legal mind already assessing the damage. They called Mr. Harrison into the meeting, ostensibly for a routine follow-up. He walked in, his usual smug confidence intact, unaware of the trap he was walking into. His smile faltered as he saw me, Sarah, and the others, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Ms. Reed, her voice now firm and resolute, confronted him directly. "Mr. Harrison, we have uncovered some deeply troubling information regarding your management practices and your handling of employee reviews. We have evidence of systemic discrimination." His face drained of color. "Discrimination? That's absurd. These are baseless accusations," he stammered, trying to regain his composure, but his voice cracked with panic. He tried to deny everything, to discredit us, but the evidence was overwhelming. Mr. Chin then presented him with copies of the hidden ledger and the testimonies. "This ledger, Mr. Harrison, with your own handwritten notes, paints a very different picture, and the budget cuts explanation for Maya's dismissal seems to be a convenient fabrication." His defiance crumbled. He stammered, offering weak excuses, blaming misunderstandings and misinterpretations. But there was no escaping the undeniable truth laid bare before him. His secret was out, exposed for all to see. Ms. Reed informed him that he was immediately suspended pending a full internal investigation, and that legal action would likely follow. His career at Sterling and Company was effectively over, brought down by his own prejudice and deceit. Walking out of that meeting, I felt a profound sense of relief and vindication. The truth had prevailed. Mr. Harrison's reign of subtle discrimination was over, and justice, though hard one, was finally within reach. The reckoning had been swift and decisive. The aftermath of Mr. Harrison's exposure was swift and decisive. Sterling and Company launched a comprehensive internal investigation, confirming the widespread pattern of discrimination documented in the hidden ledger. The findings were damning, leading to Mr. Harrison's immediate termination and a public apology from the CEO. Ms. Reed, recognizing the severity of the situation and the need for genuine change, personally reached out to me. She expressed profound regret for what I and others had endured, acknowledging the systemic issues that allowed such prejudices to fester within the company. In a pivotal meeting, she offered me not only my job back, but the very marketing manager position I had been denied. She stated that my integrity, resilience, and strategic thinking in uncovering the truth proved I possessed the executive presence they truly needed. It was a moment of profound vindication. I accepted the position, not just for myself, but as a testament to the power of standing up against injustice. My return to Sterling and Company was on my terms, with a clear mandate to foster a truly inclusive and equitable environment. My first act as marketing manager was to implement new, transparent performance review systems, ensuring that evaluations were objective and free from bias. I collaborated with Sarah and HR to develop diversity and inclusion training programs for all management levels. I also made it a priority to mentor and uplift junior colleagues, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds, ensuring their voices were heard and their talents recognized. I wanted to create the kind of workplace I had always wished for myself. Under my leadership, the marketing department thrived. The national retail chain account, which had been the source of Mr. Harrison's budget cuts, became one of our most successful partnerships. My team delivered innovative campaigns that exceeded all expectations. My story, initially a painful personal struggle, became a powerful narrative of resilience and triumph within the company. It inspired others to speak up, to challenge subtle biases, and to demand a workplace where everyone felt valued and respected. Mr. Harrison faced severe consequences beyond his termination. The legal team at Sterling & Company pursued action against him and several former employees, emboldened by the company's newfound commitment to justice, initiated their own legal proceedings. His reputation was irrevocably shattered. Looking back, my dismissal, painful as it was, became the catalyst for profound change. It forced me to confront injustice head-on, to dig deeper, and to ultimately expose a truth that needed to be revealed. It was a dark chapter that led to a brighter future. My journey taught me that true power lies not in position or title, but in integrity, resilience, and the courage to speak truth to power. I had not only reclaimed my career but had also helped to pave the way for a more equitable future for others. I am Maya, and I am proud to say that I got the manager position, not despite being dismissed, but because I dared to expose the secret that tried to hold me back. My story is a testament to the fact that your worth is never defined by someone else's prejudice.